Thank you very much. Shukriya, Dhonwad. Thank you very much to everybody, and to my Muslim friends here, Assalamu alaikum. And to my Sikh friends, Sat Sri Akal, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I'm very, very happy to be here with all of you, and I'm so happy to see the nice group of people that you have here. It's a very diverse group of people. And I want the boys back there that are listening here. Where's my mathematician? All right, make sure everybody's paying attention. So, you don't remember this, but on September 11th of 2001, there was an attack on the World Trade Center. And what happened in America at that time is that the Muslim community and the turban-wearing Sikhs, everybody said, oh, they're so different. Everybody in America said, oh, they're so different, we have to worry about all these people. And so what Fakir was talking about earlier is that people, grown men, grown women, families, were very worried about how they were going to be treated here in America. And despite that, we've seen over the past 23 years tremendous progress by the Pakistani Americans, by the Sikh Americans, who've moved ahead and succeeded and lived the American dream. They've worked hard, they've educated their children, and now they're living even a better life than they were living before in the United States of America. But in this race right now, at the national level, not just my local race, but I'm talking about the presidential race, there are so many negative things that are being thrown around by the other side to treat people like the other, like there's something wrong with them because they're different. And that is not the right way for somebody running for president to be talking. And it's really very dangerous, quite frankly, because it's almost become normal in America. Now, there's always been discrimination in this country. I've talked to some of you about this before. There's always been discrimination. My father was born in Italy, came to the United States as a young boy, first one in the neighborhood to go to college. And when he was 18 years old, they asked him in his yearbook, they asked everybody, they said, what's your goal in life? And he said, my goal is to be a real American. Now, when I first saw that when I was a boy, I couldn't understand that. Why would he say that at 18 years old? Who would think to say something like that? But I realized later on in 2016, when he died 2 weeks before my election to Congress, he was 95 years old, that 1939, the Italians had teamed up with the Germans during World War II, so the Americans didn't trust the Italians. And between that and the mafia, nobody liked the Italians. So my father had to always prove himself as an American. Now, my father lived a great American success story. First went to go to college, fought in World War II, got the Distinguished Flying Cross as a navigator on a B-24, and came home and went to Harvard Law School on the GI Bill. Now, even though he went to Harvard Law School, he couldn't get a job at a law firm because nobody would hire the Italians in the 1940s. So he started his own law firm with another Italian guy in Glen Cove, and he ran for city court judge. He became the youngest judge in the history of New York State at 28 years old. That's America. So I see my family story in your family story. You know, you're struggling to make it here in America, to fit in, to succeed, to advance your community, to advance your family, to advance your community. But you know what? Your kids aren't going to have to worry about that because of the work that you did by getting involved, by making the changes in your communities. Your kids are not going to have to worry about that the same way. And that's because of your hard work and what you've done. That's the beauty of America. You can move to Rome, you'll never be Italian. You can move to Paris, you'll never be French. You can move to Moscow, you'll never be Russian. You can move to Tokyo, you'll never be Japanese. But you can move to the United States of America and just adopt the ideas of this country, of what it really stands for, and you can be an American. Because it's an idea. It's an idea. Now, we've never lived up to the idea, okay? We've always had discrimination in our country, since day one. The first people to come to America were the Dutch. And then the Dutch, after the Dutch came the English, and the Dutch discriminated against the English. And then the Dutch and the English discriminated against the next group, who were the Germans. And then the Dutch and the English and the Germans discriminated against the Italians. The Irish. And then the Dutch and the English and the Germans and the Irish discriminated against the Italians and the Jews. And then all those groups discriminated against the Latinos. And now you see it with the Muslims. And now you see it with the Asians. It's always happened. We have to constantly fight against that discrimination. Because what's America? And think of the blacks, they've been treated the worst of anybody since the beginning. But the idea of America is that all men and women are created equal. That everybody has a divine spark in them. And that we have to work constantly to address that. So there's a guy who used to be a congressman. His name is Tom Lantos. He was a Holocaust survivor. And they now have a committee on human rights called the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission. And he said, the veneer of civilization is paper thin. We are its guardians and we cannot rest. We have to always fight against the natural instincts of human beings, the natural instinct, which is, oh, you're different than me. It's tribal. If you go back throughout thousands of years to human beings, they had to fight against other tribes to survive. So it's genetically in us to be tribal. You're one of mine. No, you're one of those. No, you're one of those. We have to fight against that and use our brains and use our souls to try and educate people about this idea of what America is supposed to be. It's very hard. It's very difficult. But for me, I always try to stick with my basic values that were taught to me from my father and my mother and my church. And that's what I know a lot of you do as well. But it's a constant effort to work to make us become, as they say in the U.S. Constitution, a more perfect union. Because we're never perfect. We want to try and be more perfect than we were before. We have to work at it. And right now I'm concerned that we're slipping away from that because of the attitude that's been promoted since 2016 with Donald Trump, where everything is like attacking people for being different. And that's a big, big challenge. Now I'm concerned about my party. I'm a Democrat. Okay? I'm concerned about I'm concerned about the far left of my party. I don't like some of the far left things because they don't share a lot of the values that I share. They're very secular. They have no religion at all. They're ashamed of America's history. They attack America. And I'm concerned about the far right. They're anti-immigrant. They're anti-Muslim. They're anti-everything. I mean, they're anti-everything you can think of, they're anti. So how do we get people where most people are, which are people in the middle, to try and work together to try and make our country better? Because you cannot solve the complicated problems of our country in an environment of fear and anger. Every problem we face is complicated. And to solve complicated problems, whether domestically or internationally, you need people of goodwill willing to sit down and say, oh, I think this, well, I think that, well, I think this, and you find a common ground. If everybody's yelling and screaming at each other and just looking at the nasty attacks on their phones, we'll never find common ground. So I'm going to say one more thing about my general philosophy that is so important to understand, and then I'll take any questions you want to ask me, okay? America is founded on two major concepts: capitalism and democracy. Capitalism is an economic system. It's based on competition. The smarter you are, the stronger you are, the healthier you are, the harder working you are, the bigger risk taker you are, the better you're going to do. And some people are stronger, smarter, healthier, bigger risk takers, harder workers. They're going to do better in a system based upon competition. Unfortunately, in a system based upon competition, some people are bad competitors. They're not going to do well in a system based upon competition. Little babies are not good competitors. They can't compete. Old men and women who are getting frail and sick can't necessarily compete. Some people you went to school with or you work with are not as smart as you, they're not going to do as well as you're going to do. If you get hit by a car and your legs get broken, you're not going to be able to compete. If you get cancer or you have a mental health problem or something else happens to you, you're not necessarily going to be a competitor. So in a system based upon competition, some people are going to do great and other people are not going to do so well. But we don't want, because you're a bad competitor, to be relegated to a life of misery because of that. Because in America, we have another system called democracy. It says all men and women are created equal. So we have to put protections in place to make sure that some people aren't left behind. We don't want it to be that a baby starves because his parents, there's something wrong with them. We don't want it to be that a senior citizen is living out in the cold or is eating dog food. We don't want when you go to work to get your fingers cut off because your boss is making you do something unsafe. We don't want it to be that the factory pollutes the earth and gives everybody cancer because they want to make more money. We're going to make them put a filter on top of it. So the challenge in our society of these two systems, capitalism and democracy, is how do you find a balance between the two? Because if you go all capitalism, you end up, like I said before, some people doing great, some people lives of misery. If you go too many protections in democracy, we got to treat everybody equally, you kill the goose that laid the golden egg. You kill the system, the economic engine that has been the best system in the history of the world. Capitalism has lifted more people out of poverty, has created more wealth, has created more innovation, has created more solutions to life than any system in the history of the world. So you want to keep the economic engine strong, but you also want to treat people like human beings. To find that balance on a knife's edge, you can't be yelling and screaming at each other all the time. You have to try and find compromise. You have to try and find where's that right balance. And every issue is like that. My big issues that I'm focused on are the border, the southern border. It's a big problem in our country right now. To solve it, we got to get people to work together, not just attack each other. We had a bipartisan solution negotiated in the Senate back in February. Everybody supported it. Republican, Democrat, Independent negotiated. The President, Biden, said he'd support it. Kamala Harris said she would support it. The Wall Street Journal said they liked it. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce liked it. The president of the Border Patrol Union supported it, and he's a big Trump supporter. Mitch McConnell said he would support it. He's the head of the Senate, and he doesn't support anything. So why didn't it pass? Because Trump called up and said, I don't want to give Biden a victory. I want to run on the chaos. Don't support that deal. That's terrible. That's what everybody hates about politics. Just trying to run on the issue instead of actually trying to solve the problem. So my number one issue is to fix the border. And I'm working with Republicans. If you look at today's Newsday, anybody have Newsday? Anybody look at Newsday today? I got endorsed by Newsday today. They said Suozzi stresses bipartisanship. Number two, I'm working on the state and local tax deduction. This is the big concern that Fakil made before, that our taxes are too high. Well, it used to be that you could deduct your state and local taxes, your property taxes, your school taxes, your state income taxes. You could deduct it from your income. So if you make $150,000 a year, if you're paying $20,000 in taxes in New York State or locally, you only get taxed at the federal level on $130,000 a year. You could deduct your state and local taxes from your overall income. You wouldn't pay taxes on the taxes you've already paid locally. Well, Donald Trump capped that amount at $10,000. That means that everybody in this room is paying more than $10,000 in taxes if they own a house on Long Island. And then on top of that, you got your state income taxes. So they said, President Trump, this is going to be terrible for New York, your home state. He says, they didn't vote for me anyway.
Exactly.
And so that's a really bad thing for Long Island and New York. So we got to get the state and local tax deduction back. Next year it expires, and there's going to be a big negotiation. I'm going to be on the committee that negotiates the taxes. Third is I want to bring money back to Long Island and Queens. Money back. There's a lot of federal programs that are very good right now that have been passed under the Biden administration. We got to get our fair share to come back here so we can do a lot of construction projects and infrastructure so that people hire Haroom to do their scaffolding. We got to do more projects because that's good for our economy. We need to get the money from the federal government. And then fourth, my big fourth priority is to try and heal this partisan divide. Stop everybody from yelling. We don't have to agree with each other. I can disagree with my colleagues, but stop hating each other and figure out how with your idea and with my idea can we find a solution to the problem to try and move our country forward. That's what we need to start doing. So listen, I've been doing this a long time. I'm trained as a lawyer and a CPA, okay? I worked for Arthur Anderson and Company, which used to be an accounting firm. I got my CPA. I went to law school. I clerked for the chief judge of the Eastern District in the federal courts. I worked for a big law firm. Then I was the mayor of my hometown. I was the county executive of Nassau County. I ran for governor of New York. I got my butt kicked by Elliot Spitzer. And then I lost my race for county executive to a guy named Ed Mangano. Now he's in jail for 13 years. So, I mean, the rule is you can run against me, but if you beat me, your life is over after that. You don't want to... But then I was in the private sector for 7 years, and I thought I was out of politics. And then my congressman left, and a bunch of people called me and said, you got to run, you got to run, you got to run. So I ran again for Congress, and I got into Congress for 6 years. And what did I do? I ran for governor again against the sitting governor, and I got my butt kicked again. And I was out of politics. And I thought I was all over. And then the guy who took my seat, because I didn't run, was a Republican, I'm a Democrat, was George Santos. And he became the biggest story in America. And everybody said, oh my gosh, Tom, you got to run, you got to get the seat back. So I'm back again. So I better not do anything crazy anymore. And I got to just stay with what I'm doing. So I want to thank my host today. Ahmad was mad at me on May 30th, but now he's back to loving me again. I appreciate him to bring his whole family like this with his brothers and his brother-in-law and his father-in-law's here and a lot of family members, and I'm very grateful to him. I really appreciate your help. It means a lot to me, and I know you got a lot of friends and connections, and helping me means a great deal to me. So thank you so much. And Haroom, I appreciate you very much. And your aunt is a wonderful woman, and she's the one who first introduced you to me, I think. Yeah. And I know you've got a big family, and you got a lot of family members here, and you got a lot of family members going to try and get out to vote for me. Yeah. And I'm very, very grateful to you, and I'm glad that you brought your Sikh brothers to the party, and I'm really glad you brought the kids here as well. And let's all try and figure out, how can we remember the things that we were taught as children? How can we try and remember the values that we learn about in our temple or in our mosque? Let's try and remember the values that we learn in our churches of what we should be trying to do to try and help other people and make the world a better place to live in. And moving forward together, we can make things better for everybody. So thank you very much, everybody. Shukriya, Donovat. Thank you. Okay.
Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe.